Hello there, Guardians. Welcome to another video where I'm just going to be talking about whatever's on my mind. This one has no script whatsoever. In fact, if I put any background gameplay, I'm going to be surprised at all, since I'm probably going to be too lazy to edit anything like the last video. But I'm going to go in and get to the main topics. Aztec Cross recently made a video saying Destiny doesn't feel like an RPG anymore, like an MMO. And he's not wrong, there's we don't have a certain freedoms. It's not really 100% open. But what he was talking about, he wasn't talking about the open world aspect, because yes, it is open, but like loading times kind of like that. It's not like Warcraft, and that's because Warcraft is a huge game that's completely just like on the internet. But for Destiny, it's just like he was mentioning stuff like, oh well, these abilities, these weapons, it doesn't feel like a fantasy, and what we do in the game, it doesn't feel like fantasy. He's right. Like for example, in an MMORPG, you can, possibly, depending on the RPG, you can infuse, or you can, I'm just gonna say infuse because that's all the terms us Destiny players will understand. You can infuse a weapon into another weapon or armor, and the armor or weapon will benefit from it not only due to levels, like how we do in Destiny, power levels, but because of stats. For example, in, I don't know what game, I don't know how to be specific, but I'm gonna go ahead and mention AQ Worlds as an example. That's a website game, by the way. It's free for everyone. Just make it a count. But AQ Worlds, if you get a sword and you have the necessary materials, like for example, let's say Destiny. Let's say I have the Traveler's Chosen, right? It's a white sidearm. The first gun you get in the game, or Kvostov. Let's say I infuse it with something like the Enigma's Draw. That's a legendary. Now, of course, Traveler's Chosen as a base stat is not too good, and it doesn't have any perks. But if I were to, no, but then technically, no, that wouldn't work out. So let's say I not infuse, but let's say, like, I use a blue or a green to upgrade the Traveler's Chosen up to a blue or green, depending on the sidearm that I use. That would be great, and then it gains a perk, it gains, sight, it also gains, a mag, that'd be great. And then you infuse like maybe something like a legendary. Then the Traveler's Chosen becomes a legendary, and it gains some of the stats that whatever was infused into it, and it also gains another extra perk with a random masterwork. Now let's say Bungie made 3 exotic perks for every single weapon type in the game, and you can literally upgrade any weapon type to an exotic, and it will gain that stat. That would be amazing. You can add shaders to it, etc. Like, it won't be exactly like exotic. Like, it can be like an adept version of it. Now, of course, Trials is adept, but what I mean by adept isn't really like 100% adept. I mean like exotic. And of course, you can't make whatever weapon an exotic, because that's just not reasonable. Exotics are special weapons with special perks. If you do that, you're going to ruin the game. Then why not make it something like Adept, where you can choose whatever the special perk does, right? But the range will be random, the rolls will be random, so literally you can actually keep farming for this, but of course that'd be a waste of materials. Like for example, let's see, Traveler's Chosen with a blue sidearm. Okay, that requires 10 legendary shards. Okay, put that in. Okay, put in a legendary that requires 20 legendary shards. Put that in. Okay, you want to masterwork it. Okay, that's fine. Oh, an exotic, or as I'll say, adept version of it. There we go. That required something. Or Kvostov. A Kvostov is 600. Like, you can, if you can upgrade that, that'd be great too. Or maybe the Cuboid. That's that blue auto rifle. Upgrade that up. I would like to see this, because this would actually add more RPG MMO feel, or something like a Minuet, raising up, because you can make it to a legendary. So if you were to add something like that, where you can make any weapon become a legendary, that would feel more like an MMO RPG. Not all the weapons are useless. You can actually do something. Now, maybe do something where it requires gunsmith materials or whatever to maybe make these armor or weapon. Like for example, let's say I want a weapon to become a legendary, but if I wanted to gain some of the stats that the other weapon had, or at least change the stats, it would require gunsmith materials. That would be great. Getting armor, like let's say, I know for example, Bungie is like, oh, well you get this armor, you can put ornament on it, great. But what if there's an armor I really like, right? It looks great, but it doesn't have the stats. What if I just want to trade the stats and the light level? Infuse that, but not only infuse that, you can also change stats. That'd be great. Of course, you can't choose the stats you want. I mean, like, you could gain the stats or make it the exact same as the weapon you choose. That would be awesome. That'd feel more MMORPG. That would make people have more of a reason to grind. Because right now we're all grinding, for those special number rolled weapons and not weapons, armor. But with this, not only will that kind of save time, but then people will then see, you know what, it is possible to get all 100s on my armor if I spend the time and effort. Because right now, I don't think it's even possible to get all 100s yet. Maybe it is, and maybe a YouTuber has said, oh, it is possible. But I don't think it is because you can't, improve the stats of all your armor and weapons. And you can't make more weapons like a legendary or something. Let's say I got blue boots. For example, here's another really good example. The hood from the beginning of the game for a hunter. That, not the beginning, but the one you get after you visit Hawthorne in the farm. It doesn't look great. But I would use that hood. So I can make that into a legendary hood. For armor, of course, I'd say not making anything exotic is completely fine. That's necessary, I'd say. Now, not only that, and I want to talk about what I said in my other video, because apparently that one didn't get that much traction. I think Leviathan weapons need to come back with random rolls. I'm really trying to get this out there, because I think having Leviathan weapons would give more incentive to grind the game or do raids, because you know what? You can get a decent loadout. Sure, doing Gambit Prime, you can get a Midnight Coup, but you can always do Gambit Prime. Yes, you could always, get a sniper, but from what's it called? From a forge or menagerie. But you can also get the Alone as a God. Now here's another thing that I think would be real helpful. Right now, the Crucible weapons have literally been the same since Forsaken came out, and I don't like that. The armor has changed. It's been not really changed, but they basically reskinned it from the year 1 armor of Destiny 2, and they just gave it oh, this is armor 2.0. I don't like that. So why not bring back Trials of the 9 weapons into that? That would give us more people incentive to grind, or maybe have Trials of the 9 weapons and armor as bounties. That would be great. Give them as bounties, drop them as random rolls. Now everyone can do the thing. People that like Trials can do Trials. Anyone that likes Crucible can do Crucible. For Gambit, they might need to also change some weapons and armor. Not the one from Gambit Prime, because that's completely fine and Reckoning. I mean just on its own, regular Gambit. That needs some reworking, because there's no point in doing regular Gambit for a Trust or something. Sure, Trust is great, but I would like to see more weapons out there. I just feel there needs to be more incentive, and if you were to give Trials of the 9 for Crucible, then people will grind it. Or better yet, because people already grind Crucible for something like a Komodo, and I already had a friend tell me, oh, I've never even heard about that weapon, because they really don't care about ritual weapons. Well, if you were to give Trials of 9 into something like the Drifter, and that would make sense, because he actually worked with the 9, the emissaries, then people would actually grind Gambit for Trials, weapons, and armor. That makes sense. Now, obviously, there's more that I can probably emphasize. Maybe bring back faction rallies, but make it a seasonal thing, and make it where you cannot change your faction, only once per account. Okay, you choose New Monarchy, you're stuck on New Monarchy for your whole account. You can't do nothing about it. Now, of course, that would suck, but that would actually make choosing a faction mean something. Oh, you can go for this God Roll Auto Rifle, or you can go for the Maxim Sniper, or you can go for the Future War Cult sidearm. And you know what? I think people will be fine with that, because then it really means your choices mean something in the game. Because it's something like the Zavala and the Drifter quest during the season of the Drifter, it really wasn't worth it. You could choose one of them and you'd be fine, really. Didn't change anything. Now, I think, and this is a huge thing for me, I really think Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten should be rebuffed. Because you guys in Bungie, they say, oh, Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten, they've had their time. They were the top, but now it's time for other weapons to shine. Well, I got news for you, Bungie. There's no point in doing Not Forgotten. I'm going for Legend. There's no point in going for Luna's Howl anymore. Now, of course, that may mean nothing to you, but you gotta realize something here. You ruined weapons, pinnacle weapons, that are really valuable. It took a lot of time for people like me to grind it. Now, this isn't just for people like me, this is also for other people. Why use a Luna's Howl Not Forgotten over a Waking Vigil, over a sidearm, over a shotgun? Well, okay, not over a shotgun. I'm actually just gonna list primary weapons. What's the point of using the Luna's Howl Not Forgotten over a submachine gun, a Last Hope, a Waking Vigil, an auto rifle, a scout rifle? You can see where I'm going with this, but I'm saying it's useless. There's no point, because there's other weapons that are better. For example, Luna's Howl Not Forgotten, they used to be able to counter shotguns the best. I can tell you right now, without a benefit of the doubt, or without a doubt, sidearm will kill much faster than Luna's Howl Not Forgotten. And here's another thing for an added bonus. Waking Vigil has more range than 180s and it does more damage. So adding Not Forgotten Lunas and back to the game as it was, it wouldn't be groundbreaking. Because there's sidearms now. There's submachine guns. There's auto rifles. There's scouts and there's pulse rifles. I forgot to mention pulse rifles, but on PC those are broken. So they're not gonna dominate the game anymore. You're right, Bungie. Yes, they had their time to shine. But if you were to rebuff them, there would be no change in the meta other than, okay, some more people will use Not Forgotten in the Luna's Howl because they can, and it's actually pretty good. And plus, with the range nerf to hand cannons, 180s aren't the most powerful anymore. So if you were to rebuff Luna's Howl Not Forgotten, yes, people would use them, but then they would probably get destroyed by 150s, like Waking Vigil and Spare Rations. Or if you rebuff, or not rebuff, if you buff up 140s and 110s that have more range than 150s, or at least more damage, then those what you would dominate further than 180s, because there's no point in using a 180 at a range, right? So I may as well use a 180 and a sniper. But then, oh wait, but if I use a 180 and I go against a sidearm sniper, I'm screwed, because if I push them, I'm dead. That's where this comes in, because it's not going to be broken. There's no point. Now, this may mean nothing. Maybe rebuffing it won't do anything to those weapons. Like, oh, you know what? Yeah, sure, they can 2-tap, but I can't hit it anymore, so it's not that good anymore. Sorry, Bungie. Because I heard, like, oh, like, it's good now because now it's forced to pace your shots. Well, it doesn't matter, because there's no point in using it over a Waking Vigil, or even grinding it out. Now, here's another thing. As I said before, 140s and 110s, they need a rework. Hand cannons, those hand cannons need a rework. Do not nerf 150s and 180s anymore to buff the 140s and 110s, because that's not going to fix them. That's not going to fix them. There's no point in even using them over like a pulse rifle or auto rifle. But I feel like you need to bring back Ritual and Pinnacle weapons. The reason why I say Ritual is because you really didn't really give them that much time to shine. They didn't really shine. Nobody really liked them. And if you did like them, cahoots to you, but there's people like me that only like the Pinnacle weapons. The Pinnacle weapons gave something to grind. The Ritual weapons can also bring something to grind. Pinnacles, yes, I can see why there's a problem, because it's a new perk. You need to find a way to control it, but at the same time make it decent and make it like worth grinding for. That's fine. If it has a problem, rework it, but do not nerf it to the ground like Not Forgotten and Luna's Howl, and do not nerf Revoker to the ground by taking away its perk, its special perk, because that's not worth it. But you need to bring them back, and you need to give us incentive to be grinding these game modes again, because there's no point. Now, one other thing, I think Trials of Osiris need to be fixed, because obviously it's going to be fixed. But I really think add-up weapons should be the go-to. I don't think you should be like, oh, you get an extra mod slot. You know what? That's interesting. But then what about for the other people that play the game that will never reach there? How are they ever going to get something like that? They can't. Now, obviously, the easy way to do this is, oh, why don't we just give them to Nightfall weapons? Oh, you got lucky to get this, free add-up mod slot. Okay, interesting, whatever. But here's another thing. Weapons like the DFA, the Duty Bound, the Silicon Neuroma, they also need to have random rolls, because right now, what's the point of using them? Or grinding for them at all? They don't have random rolls. You cannot get a DFA with opening shot rangefinder. You cannot get a Duty Bound with dynamic sway reduction and Zen moment. You cannot get a Silicon Neuroma with, actually it might already have opening shot and snapshot, but that's besides the point. I'm just saying I would like to see random rolls on these weapons because they deserve it the most. There's a lot of other weapons too that I could mention, but that's as much as I'm going to mention right now, because one, this video's already gone far too long, and two, I just feel like I don't really need to say any more. I'm only trying to get Leviathan weapons back, Trials of the Nine weapons back, I'm also trying to get the Nightfall weapons back, like the 3, the one that came out in D2 Year 1. Like I need those to get random rolls. And even better, why don't you bring back Escalation Protocol weapons with like armor random rolls? Because armor already had or armor 2.0. Why don't you bring back those weapons too with random rolls? Maybe I can get an Iglo shotgun with 1-2 punch. Maybe a sniper with snapshot, because that sniper feels excellent. If it had snapshot, I would use it. And then the other thing I would like, but I'm guessing it would never come until like maybe D3 or D4, maybe D5, when they realize this is something they could do to make the game feel more MMORPG-ish, is let you upgrade the tier of weapons. Now, I'm not saying let legendaries, again, I'm going to say this again, I'm not saying let the legendaries become an exotic, but maybe adept, give them, okay, since you reach this, you can get a special perk, and this is going to be like a ritual or pinnacle weapon. We can only choose from these 3 perks. And that's really all I want. I just want to see that. Hope you have a good day, Guardians. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. I probably stuttered a lot, probably talked a lot, but I hope you enjoy. Have a good one.